Alright, we're going to taxi out to runway 10. The winds are 1308, so we'll have a mostly headwind off of runway 10. The biggest mistake people make when they're taxiing is they try and sit on the line, when really you should be putting the line between your seat and the seat next to you. So more so to the right of your right foot is kind of the place to think about putting it when you're taxiing. And then kind of look off in the distance. Don't steer at the ground right in front of you where that line meets the cowling or the dash. So look out ahead to where you're going. Like this is what it looks like when you're sitting on the line, and you'll see I'm to the right of the line. It's me right on top, and this would be me putting in the line just to the right of my right foot or between my seat and the passenger seat. And if I go a little bit too far, it ends up looking a little bit further like it's over on my right side quite a ways, which can feel uncomfortable. A lot of people will end up taxiing to the left of the line also because it makes it that angle look like it's a little bit more correct, but really again it just needs to go right between you. Right on, we'll pull off to the left here and do a quick run up. Now when you're pulling next to an aircraft in the run-up area, you want to make sure you're leaving enough room for other aircraft to join the run-up area, as well as you need to think about which way you're pointing, which way you're orienting your aircraft. So here you'll see how they're orienting. They're not necessarily thinking about the wind, they're mostly thinking about their prop wash hitting other aircraft, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to orient in the same fashion as them. So if I lose my brakes, I won't accidentally run into them either. That's kind of inconsiderate. Right on, right on. Okay, we'll do a quick run up here. You'll note on checklists that it commonly says you want to set the throttle to 800 to 1000 RPM, and that's true when you're stopped. When you're moving, it's a little bit more, use the throttle as the speed that you want, but when you're stopped, you don't necessarily want to be running at full idle, because what you'll note here is when I pull the throttle back to full idle, you'll look at this in-off light. The alternator doesn't really run very well below that 800 RPM mark. So 800 to 1000 is for a smooth running engine, alternator operation, which will allow all of your electronics to be run by the alternator and not start depleting your battery before you even take off. When you're braking, you definitely want to reduce that power to idle. You don't want to be at 800 RPM when you're applying the brake. You want to be at throttle idle. It's not like you would be pedaling your bicycle and applying the brake at the same time, pulling up to the hold short line. So in an aircraft, you're doing something very similar to that. You're bringing the power back to idle, applying the brake to control your speed, and that will help avoid wearing out your brake pads. Right on. All right, so radios are set. I'm going to set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into my standby because that's what one of the other instructors and I are going to talk on for a little bit of formation flight. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's in the standby. Transponders to emergency procedures, takeoff briefing windows, secure, doors are locked, and our lights are as required. Okay, we're going to pull up and do a normal takeoff. Foxtrot Golf, are you ready? Alright, so a normal takeoff, we're going to pull up to the whole short line here, and it doesn't look like anyone's on final approach, nobody's on the runway. Real traffic, Sky 840 uniform departing runway 10, be close traffic, real. Alright, so we line up on the center line, and I have a habit of just using all available runway. Not necessary, it's just one of those things you get used to when you're flying a little bit bigger aircraft too. Sweet, we line up on the center line, very similar to how we are going with the taxiway. You want to put that just to the right of your right foot. And as you apply full throttle, you're going to apply a little bit of right rudder pressure just to keep the aircraft going in the same direction down that runway, parallel that center line. Sweet. Right about here, I'm going to apply a little bit of back pressure, and that's going to raise the nose up just a little bit. And once we hit rotation speed, we're just going to float gently off the ground. One of the biggest mistakes I see from students is the fact that they'll hold the elevator neutral or won't even control the elevator at all, and then they'll look at the airspeed and be like, rotate, and they'll yank on the yoke and pitch up, which that leads you to accelerated slash power on stall. Classically a power on stall. So, sweet. Alright, we are going to go do some touch and goes here. So for the first lap in the pattern, we're going to do a normal lap followed by a normal landing. Right on, we're climbing at about 85 miles per hour, which is VY in this aircraft. When we get to about 500 feet AGL, we'll make a left-hand turn right about here. Rear traffic sky 840 uniform, turn left crosswind runway 10, close traffic, rear look. Right on in the 30 degrees of bank, nothing too steep. Still pitching for that 85, still pitching for that VY. Your eyes are still out in front of the aircraft, holding that sight picture for best rate of climb. Right on, perpendicular to the runway. I fly it for a couple seconds and then turn downwind. Rear traffic sky 840 uniform is left downwind runway 10, close traffic, rear look. Sweet, and here at the Greeley World Airport, traffic pattern is 5,500 feet, which is an 800-foot traffic pattern, 800 foot above ground level traffic pattern, a little bit lower than a lot of the more standard ones, which means that I turn my base probably a little bit earlier. I'm not using a lower power setting, I'm not flying a different airspeed, everything else is pretty stable. I just turn my base a little bit earlier. Sweet, so we're being our touchdown point, and my touchdown point today is going to be the number. So being my touchdown point, I reduce the throttle back to 1700 RPM. I turn the carburetor heat on, and then I put flaps down to 10 degrees when I'm in the wide arc, which in the traffic pattern, I'm generally in the wide arc. It's not that it's a guarantee I'm in the wide arc, it's more a likelihood, but verified always. And then I'm pitching for about 85 here, and I'm trimming for about 85 miles per hour here. Turns out to be about 75 knots. 75 to 80 knots is what I'm looking for, and there is a knots on the inside of this dial. Greeley traffic sky 840 uniform, turn left base 10, touch and go, Greeley. On my base leg, I'm mostly paying attention to my airspeed control, not making many power changes. I'll be able to make those power changes when I roll out onto the base. And I look over at the runway and I feel like I'm probably on a high glide path just a little bit, so I'm going to make a small power reduction, maybe like 100 to 150 RPM in this case. Just for a moment while I slow down, I'll put flaps down to 20 degrees. I'll start this turn to final fairly early so I don't overshoot the center line. It's better to use a shallow bank and line up on centerline than to overshoot it and have to do a steep turn, just in case there's like a parallel runway. Probably overshot this. I didn't account for the wind, so I'd probably delay this turn in the future. I'm going to go ahead and put 30 degrees of flaps in. Pitching now for about 70 miles per hour, which you'll note the pitch attitude in front of me hasn't really changed. The pitch attitude won't change. It's the flaps that are going to do the airspeed reduction for you. They're causing the increased angled attack. Greeley traffic sky 840 uniform, short final 10, touch and go, Greeley. Alright, so on short final here, I'm making small power adjustments for my glide slope, which again I'm aiming to land on the numbers. 70 is my airspeed at the moment, and I'm on a good glide path. I'm actually looking to level off over the numbers. I keep saying land on the numbers, but mostly in this one I'm looking to level off. We'll do a short field where I aim to land on the numbers. Sweet, we come down to the runway, and at this point I'm starting to transition my eyes to the end of the runway as I increase a little bit of back pressure when I reduce the power to idle. Just enough to keep us in level flight. That's how much back pressure I'm applying until our wheels touch down, and I hold the back pressure. Back pressure, even the nose wheel's still on the ground, I want that back pressure in, because if I relax it, there's a massive change in the pitch attitude very aggressively. Here we get to the end of the runway. Whew.